All right, hello and welcome to another episode of the Four Bros Podcast. It is your two favorites. Well, I don't know, probably not, but you got me and Brian again. Andy and Matt couldn't be with us, so we do miss them. But you do got myself and Brian here. Brian, I have something to show you real quick. I just want to get into that. Can I? You haven't seen this yet, but I want to show you.
What
Are you
is it?
ready? Are you ready? You ready? You ready?
There he is.
Hey, there he is. There he
Can
is.
I
That
can
block,
I
he
just
looked
say,
good.
first reaction, that looks so weird on you. It looks
Does it?
good.
Does it?
Looks good, but that looks weird.
It-
Like it
It's gonna take some time to getting used to.
it's a thing of
What do you
beauty.
think, though? There
I
you go.
mean,
All right, all right.
I'm starting to believe it, but
Okay. Well,
it's been
that's what we're
it's
getting
been a
into
long week. It's
first.
been a long week
It's
with
been a
this.
crazy week. It's been a crazy week. Shout out to everybody that's gotten involved, whether it was a clip on Facebook or whether it was comments in the YouTube chat. God, it's been a wild week as far as the podcast involved, as far as the what would you call it? The
I, the
conversion,
whirlwind, the
the
conversion, the
what do you, I don't.
the the backlash, I don't know. It's been a week.
Well, here's where I'm at with it, and this is what we're getting into first. We're getting into just reacting from the week of Brandon's transformation from Florida to Georgia. I will first off by saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. I think this is the first public conversion from one college team to another. Like
I
I mean,
I've
put it
I've
out there
n-
for the whole world to see.
I've never seen this done. I've seen some underhanded, secretive conversions that kind of take place maybe like
Yeah.
over a season. Like there's this slow burn towards the other side. What you have
Hmm.
done, I have never seen ever.
Yeah.
I've seen people
I talked to
talk
Andy.
about it, but nobody
Yeah.
actually do it.
I talked to Andy, and I didn't know this about Andy, but Andy was a Georgia Bulldog. And then
Hmm.
I asked him about it. I said, "Were you public with your decision to transfer over to Florida State?" He said, "No." He goes, he's like, "That's why you just got to do it quietly, man." He was trying to get me to do it quietly. I said, "No." I
Oh.
said, I gotta express, what I'm feeling." And he was like, "No, I just, started just
You just
ripping
start
Florida
wearing
State
you
stuff."
just start wearing the hat, and then after a
But
while,
I feel
people
like
see
for
you in it,
me,
they're like, "Are you a Georgia fan?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I've been a Georgia fan."
but see, like I feel like I couldn't have done that because of how vocal I have been about Florida for since I've been
Yeah,
here. So
yeah,
I had to be public about it. Like there's
yeah.
no way I couldn't have just showed up to your house with this shirt on and you'd have been like,
No,
"What are you doing?"
yeah, yeah.
like what's going on? You wouldn't have just been like, "Oh, you're a Georgia fan?" I'm like, "Yeah, of
No,
course."
no,
Yeah,
no. I'd have been
exactly.
waiting on the
But it
punchline. Like, yeah,
yeah. But yeah, no, it has been a wild week. Couple things I want to share though. I want to say thank you to all of the Georgia fans that have welcomed me. When Brian, we were at lunch and, and people were coming up and saying like, "Hey, you're welcome anytime." People in the comments on Facebook. For the most part, the vast majority of the people that I've interacted with, people that Brian's interacted with, they have been very welcoming to me being a Georgia Bulldog, and I'm still getting used to hearing that, but it's cool. I mean, it's Brandon Smith is a Georgia Bulldog. All right, before we get in, what do you hear or what do you think when you hear that? Has it?
like you got adopted by the Gates family or something. I mean, it's like what a great situation for you. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
like I
yeah,
don't, I still like I've accepted it. I believe you.
yeah,
Like I really
yeah,
think you're on board. It's just weird. Like
yeah,
I was, and this is how bad it's been. This is how bad of a week it's been for me. I had to take Charlie and drop her off at the dance studio this afternoon, and was on the way back. And this is what's on my mind is I'm like when I like my friendship with you, like we're close friends. You're one of my best
yeah,
friends, and but you're that Florida fan. You know what I'm saying? There was always
yeah,
like that. Yeah, I mean we're good friends. Football's football, whatever. But you're the Florida fan. You're that guy, and
yeah.
now you're not. And I'm like, I don't. Is there's like this hole in this void? Like I mean, yeah, we're really good friends, and but now you're on my side, and like, what does that what does that look like? What does
Yeah.
that mean? Like, and within our group, we're so used to it being Georgia, Florida State, Auburn, Florida, and now Florida's just been evicted. Like
Yeah, they're just
you're
gone.
nothing in Four Bros
Yeah.
anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
I I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's
I
weird.
kind of
It's
I
weird.
kind of feel bad for Florida a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think you said it best that one day we were talking about. You said it's going to be weird when Georgia scores and we're together and I stand up to high five you. Like
Yeah,
that's going to be the sign that's going to be the
yeah,
weirdest part of all of it. Like you're high fiving everybody else and then you have to turn to me and I'm going to
yeah,
be there like ready. Like
yeah,
and you're just gonna be like, "Whoa, that's" so I
yeah,
might take some time to get used to. But again, for all the Georgia fans that were welcoming, thank you. Thank you. You have been amazing. It's just like, yeah, it just feels like I'm walking into a whole new family, and it's been great. To the Florida fans, this is what surprised me the most out of the whole deal over the last week. I have I didn't really get I got some backlash, like, you got the typical like, "Oh, you're a traitor, you're this." I had my own family people in my family texting me saying like, "Oh, you're just jumping on a bandwagon." And let me just be abundantly clear on this. I don't see it as jumping on a bandwagon. Jumping on a bandwagon would have been like in 2021, 2022. That would have been jumping on a bandwagon. But I think I was very clear and precise and detailed as to why. It wasn't just oh, Georgia's very successful right now and they're the number one team in the nation. I'm going to jump on. This has been a years long decision. Um, and so again, it's not a bandwagon thing. And plus, I live in Georgia. I'm surrounded by
yeah,
Georgia fans. I mean, it's so it's not that. So, but one thing that I did notice that was very shocking. It wasn't. It was shocking, but it was a huge sign for me through this whole week. I didn't have one single Florida fan try to argue or like even stop me like, "No, this is why you need to stay." Didn't have any of that. It was
yeah,
just "You're a traitor, you're this, you're that, go away." Because
yeah,
I think if they try to debate after watching the podcast, they're like, "Nah, I get it."
yeah.
Like, "No, I understand." Like, we're in a bad spot.
Well, so
Um,
the bandwagon element for from my point of view as it pertains to you, you just kind of going to have to embrace that because that
yeah,
you'll never overcome that until you stick with Georgia long enough to go through some not so favorable seasons, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's
which
kind
I
of
I understand that.
it's like kids that have been brought up in the last in the Kirby era. They don't know what we've been through. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. We talked
this
about
is
that on Wednesday.
that they have a false perception of Georgia football and where we've been and what we've been through. So, it's kind of the
Uh,
same way with you. Like, okay, you've converted into what does seem like it's going to continue to be a little bit of a profitable season for Georgia. But dude, I'm not naive to it's college football. Things are going to happen. Changes are going to
yeah,
come. Georgia's not going to be on top of it. And we said it with Alabama. I mean, Alabama did it longer than anybody else has done it under Saban.
yeah,
And even that is going to, and I'm not saying they're done yet because they're still a really good football team, but things will change. It will come to an end. It will shift. Georgia's not going to, be in the playoff every single year. They're not going to play for the national title every single year. So until we get to one of those seasons, I think that's just something that you're going to have to say. I don't
yeah,
care what it looks like. I'm a Georgia fan, and
yeah.
it
And
is
I'm
what it
fine with
is.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And because I know, and we've talked about this before, I can't like because that would look really bad on my part if Georgia starts declining, Florida starts regaining success, and then I just switch back over. I can't switch back over. I don't want to
No,
switch back over.
you
I don't want
cannot go
even people.
back.
No, 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 no. And I
No.
don't want to. I don't want people to think that I'm just, waiting to, to sneak back over. I'm not going to do that because how welcomed I have been by some Georgia fans and how I've been treated by some Florida fans, I don't want to go back now. I don't. Like
Yeah.
that just led me to like it confirmed, it gave me more affirmation even after I made the decision. And the last group of people that I want to bring up is is Georgia fans who some said it to me and some even said it to you that just said, "No, you can't come over." Didn't give any reason, didn't give any explanation. They just said, "No, you can't come over." My message to you is, and I want you to see me clearly, kick rocks barefooted. Okay, that's what I want you to do. Just plain and simple, kick rocks barefooted. Because here's the deal: not one of you had a single issue with Trevor Etienne transferring. Didn't have a single issue. He Florida to Georgia, same thing. He's a little bit better of an athlete than I am, but still, same thing. Florida to Georgia. I don't see the difference in that. Please explain that to me.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Um, yeah, I mean
And not one of them gave you an explanation. Not one of them gave me an explanation. They just said no, you can't.
it's just the
Were they just
yeah.
shocked because they haven't seen it before?
I mean
Just
that
overwhelmed by it?
that was my initial reaction, but I think it's rooted in not so much that it can't be done, but almost like a can it be done? Should it be done? You know, it's just
Oh,
it raises
it's
a lot
done,
of
baby.
right. It's done. I mean, I get it,
It's
and,
done.
and I'm excited. I mean, I'm like again, I'm ready for us to be able to watch that first game, and like it's still weird to even say it, but whatever. I mean, I'm game for it. I mean, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get to go to some games and all that. It's just, you know, I've seen what people have commented this week, and I've heard some of the stuff that people have said. And I've even brought it up to people. I'm like, you know, I had a couple people even at the gym that come up and there was like, "Watched your podcast. He can't do that." I'm like, "What?" Like, I mean, you quite literally you can be a fan of any team and university that you want to be, and you literally can
Yeah.
change at any. It can be done. You know, should it be done? Can you question? See, and here's the thing: as long as you're willing to catch the smoke, as long as you're willing to take the criticism, as long as you're willing to hear how much of a bandwagon, I mean, the not the worst thing that could happen, because I hope this does happen. The worst thing that can happen for you is that Georgia just rattles off 15 wins and becomes a national champ, and you be found celebrating anywhere. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
while
Oh, I'm going
Florida's
to
over there,
100%.
Florida's 2-10, and you know trying to hire Valdosta State's coach. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you don't want to find yourself in that position, um, but then again, you do, because that's what it's all about. But um,
It is
I
what it
don't
is.
know.
Again, I know all good streaks must come to an end. I know Georgia is not
Yeah,
going to be the number one team in the nation forever. So it's going to be in
yeah.
those moments when, let's just say, God forbid, they go 5-7 or they go 6-6. Will I still be there in the trenches? And my answer to you is, you bet your bottom dollar I will be.
You don't
I
have a
will be
choice now.
there. Well, I know,
You don't have a
I know. Well,
choice. You will be drug into the
I'm
trenches. You
yeah,
do not have a
right.
choice.
I will somehow, as the newly converted fan, I'll be the one that gets blamed for Georgia going five and
Oh
seven. Like
yeah.
it'll be my fault somehow, and I'll wear that on the chin. But I don't
Yep.
think that's going to happen anytime soon. And I even said this yesterday, coming off of um, Florida beating Samford, and then of course they did. Now Florida. Let's just talk about that for a second as we get ready to jump into our next thing. Now Florida finds themselves in a crazy predicament because DJ Lagway, their backup, goes out and lights it up, almost throws for 500 yards, goes nuts. So now all these Florida fans are begging for DJ Lagway, and they're not going to get that. And if they beg enough, Billy Napier will do that and throw him out there, and where he'll face a real defense here very soon, and he'll get shredded, and then they'll be in shambles. And I hate to say it for any Florida fans listening, like, and we talked about this Saturday, but Florida, like, after what we saw against Samford, and especially after Miami, and knowing that the schedule's coming up, like, it's the like 2 wins, 3 wins might be it, which
Mm-hmm.
is the way that things are going. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're already missing 5 starters off defense now on injury. It's just it's bad. So again, none of
Mm-hmm.
that though. And I was making my point of this. Let's just say though they do throw in DJ Lagway, he goes crazy. They end up going 11-1. That's just like crazy hypothetical. Still not changing my mind. I'm still a Georgia fan. I'm
Yeah,
still going for the Bulldogs. And I know Brian's like, well, you didn't have a choice anyways. You're stuck over here now.
yeah.
No, even that, not even that. Like, and I know that would be worst case scenario because then Florida fans would just like eat me alive, and that's fine. But that's not going to happen. 11-1 would be absurd this year.
Mm.
But no, so it has been a crazy week. It has been it has been fun to hear from everybody. So, but it's a done deal. It's signed. It's over. As a fan, who knew that fans could enter the transfer portal? But I did. I went right behind Trevor Etienne. I said, "Where are we going, big dog?" He goes, "We're going to Georgia." I said, "Okay, I'm with you." And here we are. We're here. He took a game off. I took a game off, and now here we are. And we're here, and we're repping the dogs.
Just stay
So.
out of the vehicle with him, but other than that,
I
be
will,
good.
I will. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm not riding with Trevor anywhere, but I'll drive. So, but we're good. But speaking of wild things, let's get into what was a wild week 2 of college football. Oh my word! Where do you even begin? Where do you even begin to talk about what was that? Let's start with Northern Illinois beating number 5 Notre Dame. They paid Northern Illinois $1.4 million to come into South Bend, Indiana, and get beat. What was supposed to be a cupcake, like let's
28,
regroup
28 and a
from
half, 28 and a half
yeah,
point spread.
let's regroup from barely beating Texas A&M. Let's get home. Let's destroy these guys by 30 points. Let's call it a day. And then they find themselves losing on a last second um, field goal or a blocked field goal. I think it was Notre Dame had a chance to maybe tie it or something.
It was
Um,
long.
but yeah, so Texas just walks into Michigan, just bullies those guys for 4 quarters. Alabama finds themselves in a dogfight with South Florida, which is wild, and they end up rattling off 28 points in the fourth quarter. Um, Oregon barely escapes Boise State, which is crazy. Penn State found themselves in a dogfight with Bowling Green. I think Bowling Green at one point was winning that game. Um, Utah doesn't score any points in the second half after Cam Rising goes out with an injury. Um, Tennessee handles NC State. I think everybody thought that game was going to be really close. It wasn't. And Oklahoma beats Houston by 4. Like that.
Mm.
I mean, that's just crazy. So Brian, was there any major surprises or anything that stuck out to you that was like crazier than other things as you look at that wild week 2 of college football?
I mean, obviously, like you said, the main one to point to is Northern Illinois, Notre Dame. But man, and I heard like I think Marcus Freeman is an incredible coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of programs that wish they had a Marcus Freeman. I don't know what it is with him though. Like he can get them up for the big game, but then the Northern, I mean, they should have beat Northern Illinois again. The spread was 28 and a half. I mean, that shouldn't have been a good game.
Yeah.
And it
No.
was. And I was shocked, man. I mean, I really had Notre Dame as being a legitimate, top 5, 6 team this year. And that shocked me. Um, Tennessee, I think, and I may have mentioned this on a previous podcast, I think they're going to end up surprising some folks. I like the new quarterback. He's tall. He's got a cannon of an arm,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of talent. But I'm going to tell you something, and I saw this in a clip. Josh Heupel, the coach, is it Heupel? Isn't he the coach?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was just a short clip, and he like interrupted before the press started asking questions, and he just said basically, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember word for word, but he said this team is built on good defense, and then he started naming off all the alumni:
Mm.
Reggie White, Eric Berry. He was like, "We're going to win on defense," and I've seen that in the NC State game. I mean, they only gave up 10 points. They're
Mm.
I think they're a pretty good team. Going to continue to surprise some folks. I think they've been overlooked. Everybody knows Alabama struggled until late in that game, but they ended up pulling away. I watched a good bit of that second half. I honestly felt like that's one of those situations where USF was just really good in the right spot to keep that a
Mm-hmm.
game. I
Yeah.
still feel like, man for man across the field, Alabama was the far superior team. But,
Oh, for sure.
where they struggled a little bit in run defense, South Florida just kind of ran that option read, and the quarterback got some yards. So don't overreact too much to that. I think Alabama is still a really good football team. Just probably not that great of a matchup
I mean, they
for
struggled with
them.
USF last year. They
Yeah,
struggled with USF last year.
yeah,
So I
but
think the score was like 3-3 at the half last year. But
yeah, but wasn't that like a crazy sloppy? Wasn't it just a straight up downpour that whole game or something?
yeah, it was in Tampa. I'm sure weather was a factor.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was kind of weird. So I will say this though, this bracket that we did, we can go ahead and throw them away. I think, right? I mean, they're
trash,
pretty those. Yeah, they're
trash.
toast.
I mean, as we sit here
Let me.
right now, there are one, two, three, four. There are four teams in my bracket that would not even make my bracket if I redid it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. So it's pretty wild as far as like I was sitting here just trying to look at mine. Is there anybody that? Let me ask you this: is there anybody that's not in your bracket that, or that wasn't in your bracket to begin with, that would be in your bracket now after 2 weeks of football being played?
Well, it would be between two teams, and I don't know which one is better yet. But I would have Tennessee or Missouri, one of those two
Mm,
teams in the
yeah. Okay.
playoff. Schedule wise, I think Missouri has, and we were talking about this before we started. They've only played um, Murray State and Buffalo, so I mean,
Mm,
let's don't get too excited. But I think they're good, and when you look at their schedule, you got Oklahoma and Alabama are their toughest
mm-hmm.
opponents. So I mean, even if let's say they lose to Alabama, okay, they go 11-1, they're getting in the playoff.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Easily.
so I think them. I think Tennessee has a chance, especially if I mean I hope they lose to Georgia, but um, if they got a chance to go 10-2, 11-1, and be sitting there, the AP rankings updated as of this recording, Sunday evening, they updated today. You realize 6 out of the top 7 teams are SEC.
Yeah. And
It's
which
insane,
I
man.
think people who know college football, you got to know that that was coming to some degree, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That it was going to mainly be SEC teams there at the top. I think for me, if I had to pick a team that wasn't on my bracket, that probably should be now, I would either, I like the Missouri pick, or I would have to say, I had Florida State as winning the ACC and being the 3 seed. That's a wash. I hate
Yeah,
that for Andy and hate
yeah.
that for, that was kind of a terrible start. But I would say Miami to kind of maybe even replace them to win the ACC and just kind
Think
of how
so.
they're handling business. I think I thought going into that Florida game, I thought Cam Ward was overhyped. I was like, this guy is not as good as they're saying he is. He was really good,
Hmm.
and he showed it in week 2 as well, of how good he is. So, and I think they kind of have one of those schedules to where they could, possibly go undefeated or even be a 10-2, 11-1 kind of team and compete for the ACC title. But I think Tennessee's a good sleeper pick. But what I see now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this just emphasizes that October 19th game between Georgia and Texas. I think that game now is going to be unreal.
I
That's going
mean,
to be.
I think we have a little bit of a tougher road leading up to that, if I'm not mistaken.
I can we? You said we.
Huh?
You said we. I love that.
Well, I meant like me and Georgia. I wasn't thinking about you, but it does include you.
Okay.
it does. No, it includes you. We, us, our team.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right.
Um,
All right. All right.
so we've got Kentucky, at Alabama, Auburn at home, Mississippi State at home, and then Texas. So what do they have
Yeah.
leading up to that? They have Texas, San Antonio, UL Monroe, Mississippi State, and then the Red River shootout. So,
Yeah,
I mean, probably, statistically, they have a much better chance of going into that game undefeated,
sure.
simply because we have to go on the road to Alabama, and I mean that is going to factor in. But if we get past Alabama, take care of business in the other, we're going into October 19th as number one, number two teams in the country.
Yeah, which is going to be
I
it might
mean,
be a preview of the SEC championship, and it might be a preview of a playoff game, semifinal game later on. This is what I have it
I,
as.
I've tried to watch as many different teams as I could. I mean, like I said, I've seen Tennessee now. I haven't seen Missouri yet, but I've seen Miami. I've seen Clemson, obviously Georgia. I've seen Texas. I've seen Michigan. I haven't seen Oregon. I've seen the scores. I hadn't seen Oregon. I've seen LSU. I've seen USC. So I'm trying to watch a lot of different teams. And I'll be honest with you, Georgia and Texas, to me, have kind of separated themselves early on.
Yeah,
Again, I still think there's some good teams out there, but I think it's just crazy to think that not only do these teams have to play in the regular season, but they're competing for the same conference championship, and then got a really good chance of running back into each other in the playoff. I mean,
mm,
it's going to get interesting.
yeah, yeah. So October 19th is going to be a huge one for sure. But again, the week two in and of itself was just insane as far as I mean, you talked about Oregon there for a second. Oregon barely won their game as well. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was the
30,
final score
37,
was
34, last
yeah,
second field
thirty-seven,
goal.
34. Yeah, so again, just watching a lot of teams struggle. And
Mhm.
yeah, 37-34 against the Boise State team. That Boise State struggling to beat Georgia Southern, right? In week one. So again, but I think like another team that I mean, I had them in my playoff, but I think they're consistently getting better. As I know we've only been through 2 weeks of the season, but Ole Miss and Ole Miss has a pretty, their schedule doesn't start getting pretty wild there towards the end. I mean, they take on Wake Forest this Saturday, then they play Georgia Southern, then Kentucky, Kentucky just lost to South Carolina. Then they go to South Carolina, to LSU, then Oklahoma, and then they get Georgia, Florida back to back, kind of there at the end of the season. So I don't know. I think Lee Corso though hit the nail on the head as far as college football. When we get down to the national championship game, there is not going to be a single team that is going to be undefeated by the end of the year. Not
Very
a single
likely.
team that is going to be undefeated.
Yeah,
So
it's going to be
I
tough,
think
man.
if you walk into the playoffs with one or two losses, you had a heck of a year this year.
Yeah,
Heck of a year.
yeah.
Just that's just how good these teams have
I
been. If
I
that's how
said it when
wild
we
week two's been,
yeah when we picked our brackets. I said it even sitting there like mapping out Georgia's path to the national title and the teams that you would have to beat. It
hmm
it's like, dude, who can do that? You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
And you get to
yeah,
the playoffs, it's not. I mean, you could do they could go 13-0. They could go 13-0, win the SEC at 13-0, get a bye in the playoff, and then you mess around there in the semifinal and get a bye to the semifinal. You mess around and run back into Texas, and they knock you off, and you're out.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I mean,
Just just that quick. Just that quick.
oh
So
no,
I mean, that was just week two of the season, and so we got 10 more weeks of this stuff for the regular season.
wow.
So we'll see how it goes. It's gonna be wild. But anyways, let us know what you think as far as who's going to be there at the end, or who is your kind of your sleeper pick or your biggest surprise there in week two. Another football recap we want to do is we're going to try to do this weekly as the season goes on, but we're going to recap our Cairo High School Syrupmakers, and they took on Kathleen High School all the way from Lakeland, Florida. They drove about 4.5 hours up here to Cairo and took on the Syrupmakers, and it was a terrible weather game as far as just like wet and just this consistent like little spitting rain,
Mhm.
but it was just enough to annoy you. But it did rain. but it was a game that started off, I think, slow because of the weather, and then, I mean, Kathleen traveled with, I think it was 33 guys, and you could
Oh,
tell by the opening kickoff. Uh, I don't know if Brian, and I'm sure you noticed this too, a huge size difference between our guys and Kathleen. I mean, it
yeah,
was some of those guys. I mean, they had to have been freshmen in high school,
yeah,
but starting out there, we returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and then it was kind of over from there. Brian Duncan set a single game rushing record, 300 yards on the nose. Man, kid is unreal. We've been talking about him, I think, every episode.
silly.
Brian Duncan, he's a sophomore, setting a single game rushing record again, 300 yards on the ground. Um, I think I ran into Joe Ward the other day. I think our all-purpose yards was in like the 700s or something, because I think we had 2 kickoff returns for
Hmm.
touchdown and all kinds of different things. So, but yeah, what was your thoughts? You thought it was a good game? I'll get into some other questions too, but what were your overall thoughts of the game?
I don't know how much we can really take away from it. Honestly, I
Yeah.
mean it was a team that we obviously were far superior to. I mean, he scored 63 points, and we ended up giving up 28. And I think some of that was just momentary lapses in focus. And
Hmm.
you get in these games and sometimes they're weird because like you said, you could tell from the opening kickoff, we ran the opening kickoff back. I mean, it looked like those kids wanted nothing to do with tackling any of our guys or trying to get in the
Yeah.
way. I mean, so I don't know that we can take a whole lot away. I think confidence wise, it was good for us to get one in the win column. One thing that's I really didn't pick up on until this past week, and I started thinking about it going into this game. The last 6 times we had suited up and played football, we had lost. Going all the way
Mm,
back to Bainbridge last year, we took it on the chin hard against Bainbridge. You lose first round playoff game that we felt like we were better than that team, and it
yeah.
just you lose a tough one there, and then you come in this year, you got scrimmage against Irwin, scrimmage against Worth, and I know those games
Yeah.
those games tend not to count when you lose, but when you win them,
Mentally, they do.
you want
Yeah.
to talk about how well we did get a win. So I look at that both ways. The last six
Yeah.
times we had put on that uniform, we didn't come away on the winning side. So I thought it was
Wow.
really
Yeah.
important to get a win. I mean, these
Yeah.
kids need to they need to feel that again, and hopefully it'll give them some confidence going in this week against Cook. Cook is Cook's one of those teams this week. Going up to Adel. They're a little bit of a smaller school, but a very strong. A lot like Cairo in tradition, like just a very
Hmm.
traditional program. They've had success in the past. Um, they're going to be Coach Slack up there. They're going to be a good football team. I don't think they're as good this year, talent wise, from what I've seen. But they're going to push us, and I mean it's a home game for them. It'll be a big game for them. Um, it's one that, again, from the outside looking in, I think we really need to win it, just for confidence sake.
Yeah.
Go up there, just kind of take it to them, and would love to see kind of a dominant victory, not really getting to a dogfight with them. I think we've got a good chance to do that. Um, I did see that weather may be playing a factor again. I hope
Mm,
that changes before Friday, but I did see some pretty significant rain chances. So we'll see.
yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah. Now, so yeah, they do travel to Adel and take on Cook County. Uh, I think, for me, as I look at, the last couple games, and I'm sure here in the near future we'll have Michael Best back on and kind of give his insider thoughts and opinions on it. But for us, or for me, I would say, not to, and again, I'm not trying to be critical, and because again, I support the program, support the coaches, but I think just from a football perspective, I would like to see the secondary of our defense be a little cleaner, right? I know we got young guys. I know we're driven by a lot of sophomores on the defensive side of the ball. But then also too, I kind of like you said, I kind of look at that both ways because we are led by a sophomore on the offensive side of the ball, and
That's
our
right.
quarterback that's been starting the last 2 games has been a freshman. So,
Mhm.
and they're doing a very good job moving the ball on the ground. There's not a whole lot of a pass game there because we've been so successful on the ground. I would like, and I'll get to that later. I would like to see us maybe throw the ball a little bit more, just kind of change it up. But I think our secondary, I think there's been some miscommunications the last couple games, but that maybe have hurt us. I think in the Thomasville game, we did a really good responding after being down 21-0. We kind of fixed some of those things.
Mhm.
But I think our run defense is really good. I think we can win that battle up front a lot of the times. But I think sometimes when they do play action or we load the box up and they go for that pass, sometimes our secondary can get caught sleeping. So,
Mhm.
but I think little things like that. I mean, we're right there. I mean, we have some good talent. We have good athletes on the team. But I just think staying healthy and just doing what we do best is going to
Yeah.
help us in the long run for sure. But I'm excited. I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen Cook County play. So, but I'm trusting your guidance there. We should be able to go in there and handle business. Hopefully, weather's good, but just go out there and do what we do.
Yeah. No, I think, like I said, I mean, all you can do at this point is kind of look at common opponents and, kind of gauge. Again, I don't want to put too much stock in that because I know Cook
Hmm.
County's tradition and they're just the top team. I mean, th- they're going to show up and believe they have a chance to win. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But um, uh, Cairo, one thing that you said, about the secondary or whatnot, and I mean, I can't sit here and get into the X's and O's. I mean, I see what I see, and I watch football from very much a fan's perspective and how I consume it. But I know the game a little bit, and it's odd to me that and it really doesn't matter what team it is. They're
Yeah.
just guys kind of run free. So I don't know. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know if it's zone. Right? It doesn't look to me like we play a ton of man to man. Maybe we do, but it looks to me like we play a lot of zone, and they kind of exploit it. And then maybe the inexperience on that backside just doesn't understand that concept or can execute in that concept as well. I don't know enough about it really to give an opinion one way or the other, but it, what I take away from it is when I look forward to our schedule, especially in region play,
Hmm.
when we play some of these athletic teams and Monroe comes to mind for me. Monroe has a very skilled quarterback, and we know that Monroe is always going to have athletes, and we have been down this road with them numerous times. They have been in some dog fights with Cairo teams that should have run them out of the stadium just because they had athletic quarterback and some athletic receivers. Those kind of games scare me right now with Cairo. Like, and I
Yeah.
don't know that it's necessarily. I don't know that the fix is, oh, well, the secondary just needs to play better. I think we might need to really ramp up and get some pressure on the quarterback and not let these
Hmm.
guys stand back there and just throw it all over the field. But we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
our coaches are giving it their all. I really think that we're not telling them anything they don't know or see
That's
on
right.
film.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I mean, at the end of the day, we do have some young guys back there, and they do
Hmm.
have to grow up, and they've got to execute, and they got to play better. Um,
Yeah.
but still got a little time before the games really start counting. So just hoping to see some
Yeah.
progress.
Well, you take those little things and you clean them up before you get to region play, and you start setting yourself up for success. Because I think we go into this Cook County game, and then correct me if I'm wrong. I think then we jump into our first region game in Bainbridge, or no? Am I wrong on that? I may be wrong on
We've
that.
got
But
we've got Cook, and then are we off? I don't have it right in front of me.
yeah, no, I could
Hang
I
on.
could be wrong on all that. But regardless of all that, what I will say is though the importance of cleaning the things up they got to clean up. And again, like I said, I'm sure the coaches know this, and they work on that, and we're not telling them anything that they don't already know. But
Mhm.
you know, but again, it's not something you want to walk into the Cook County game and not, that's still a game that we got to strap up for and get ready to roll. So we'll be excited for it. We'll be there and cheering them on, and love to see a good game happen there. So again, Cairo goes to 8L take on Cook County High School this Friday night at 7:30. So it should be a good game, and hopefully, we'll come away there with a win. And again, like the performance that they did against Kathleen, and so again, that puts us at a 1-2 record. But hopefully, we'll turn some things around. Still a long season, only 3 weeks into the season, so like to see what comes next of that. So, you know, well, one of the next things we want to get into real quick, because I know earlier we talked about, the transition from Florida to Georgia, which I know some of you are still taking some time, but it's signed, sealed, delivered. I've entered the transfer portal, but I don't have any NIL deals. Now, if if fans can get NIL deals, let me know, because I want to be a part of that. But Brian, I have a question for you, and will kind of be
Mhm.
the last thing before we close this out.
Mhm.
Um, what one thing that we've learned over this week, not just the response from Georgia fans and Florida fans and stuff, but we actually started getting texts from people of like, well, hey, I'm switching from this team to this team.
Oh,
And we're like,
yeah.
I'm doing like, I think I've started something terrible. Like
Oh, you
I
have.
didn't, I
The
didn't
these
mean
these
to, I
people
didn't.
think they can just swap, like it's not even that big of a
Yeah.
deal, like I'm just
Yeah. No,
out,
I
you know?
think what you have to do, there has to be a criteria. And I think what you have to, if you legit want to switch, you have to either come on the podcast, or you have to, no, you have to come on the podcast, and you
Yeah.
have to give legit reasons why. I thought from the last episode, I thought everything I said was legit reasoning as to why. I talked about from the culture, from all of those different things, and all of the different issues that not just happened this year or last year, but I'm talking for the last, since I went back to 2009, just about the
Mhm.
culture problem. And I was so glad to hear that I had someone agree with me, and we have never even met each other. You want to know who it was, Brian?
Who's that?
It was Nick Saban. On College Game Day, they started going through the different teams that are currently having issues right now. And he brought up about the issues with Billy Napier and the Florida Gators, because Billy Napier was one of his assistants back in the day.
Mhm.
And one thing that he said was there is a culture problem in Florida. There is a discipline problem in Florida. And that's been the two key issues for Florida since '09. And even before that, even when Urban Meyer was there, they were having all kinds of issues. Now, granted, when Urban Meyer was there, they were having all kinds of issues, but they were winning national championships. So those issues got overlooked. I'm like, oh, well, we'll let that thing slide
Yeah.
because you're bringing home national championship. But after Urban left, those things stayed, and they have continued to stay as far as
Mhm.
discipline and the culture. It's just a bad culture. But so, with all of that being said, if you want to switch teams, yeah, I think you got to come on the podcast. You got to give legit reasons. And I think Brian, because he's now been through this once, he'll determine whether those reasons are legit or not. So
So I'm
he's
in
not the
control of the
gatekeeper.
portal?
No, no, I'm not saying. I think as a committee of the podcast, we understand now. We're not saying we're the gatekeeper for everybody's fan base, but
I can't
you know,
carry that weight. I
no,
cannot
no,
bear
no.
that cross. No.
But we understand the reason. So now I say all that to say we have had two other guys, two other members of the Four Bros that their college teams have had some pretty rough starts. Andy's Seminoles are 0-2, and the boys are struggling. They have a culture problem right now. It's not a good place. DJU, I'll go ahead and say it, and I think we've said it before. He's not the guy. He's just
He's
not the guy.
not.
Um, so Brock Glenn may be starting for them in week 4. Who knows? They had a bye week, which I think was a perfect timed bye week for them. I think it's
Can't
the way the
lose on
Lord
the bye
planned it.
week.
That's right. That's right. And then old Matty J, as you know, being from Alabama, but he roots for the other team. He roots for the Auburn Tigers, and Auburn took a loss to Cal over the weekend.
Who he
A
picked to
game that
beat
they,
Florida State.
yeah,
He
yeah,
didn't pick him
yeah,
to beat
which is,
Auburn.
yeah, Yeah, in which I reminded him in that episode. I said, "Now remember, Cal gave y'all fits last year." Because I remember we watched that game. It was a really late game because it's in California, and they gave them fits, and they walked away barely winning that game. And Cal walks into Jordan Hare and just, I mean, I think Auburn had 5 turnovers. I think the quarterback had 3 or 4 interceptions. Just a sloppy game from
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Um, so the question for you is something we could debate about is now that this crazy trend of people just jumping ship on their teams, out of Andy and Matt and where the condition are of their 2 teams, who do you think's gonna be the first to jump ship if they were to jump ship on their teams?
100%, Andy. 100%.
I think he's tried
Hey,
already. I think
oh, he's y'all, and I'm gonna talk about him because he's not on here with us, and he'll hear this later and give us a hard time. Man, he loves. I know he loves Florida State, and Andy's
yeah.
one of those that, and it's so weird because I'm kind of the opposite. Like growing up, I wasn't like as a little kid, I wasn't like a diehard Georgia fan. Like my dad was not like a football fanatic. We were for Cairo high school football, but not like college. So I just kind of watched what was on TV, and of course at that time it was Florida State and the Bobby Bowden era, and all is good. I mean, I like Florida State. I like Georgia. I
Mhm.
wasn't like stuck to any one team. It wasn't until I got in high school that I like pledged my allegiance to the University of Georgia. But um, Andy's kind of the same. He's the opposite. Like I think he was a Georgia fan, and then he kind of chose to go um, to go with Florida State. And I mean, he's been die hard. I mean, through the tough
Yeah.
seasons, the ups and downs, the successes, obviously, which they've had a lot of. I still think his favorite person is Jameis Winston on planet Earth, um,
Yeah.
but I still like it. To if you know Andy, I mean he's wild anyway. He just acts a fool sometimes, and so fun to be around. But I think he's close to jumping ship. Like
Mhm.
he's been throwing up a lot of hook 'em symbols. He he's
Yes,
been
he's been
he's
big
been
on the
barking.
horns.
He's been barking an awful lot. My biggest argument with him recently has been you cannot have both. You cannot
No,
leave Florida
no,
State and be a
no,
Texas and a Georgia fan. Like, what are we
no.
doing? Right. So
If you're gonna do
the
it, you gotta do it the right way. I didn't pick Florida and Georgia. That would be insane. That would be clinically psychotic. You
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
You definitely couldn't do that. But you gotta
But
pick one. And
but I don't think I still don't think Andy's going to give up on Florida State though. I think it would take. It's going to have to like this season's going to have to get really really out of control for him to get serious about it. Matt Matt is not. I don't see him leaving Auburn. Like
I mean,
I
yeah.
don't.
I mean, don't you think? Not trying to throw shade at Matt, but it's like, as an Auburn fan, aren't you used to this kind of stuff? Like, isn't this
Well, I
normal
mean,
for
I
y'all?
think that's
Like,
kind of harsh. I mean, they've had some
well,
success.
I mean,
Not
okay,
recently, but I
yeah,
mean they've.
yeah,
It's not like they're. I mean, I keep going back to Georgia. It's not like Auburn went 40 years without a title. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we did,
yeah.
but I mean, Auburn's had they've had some success, and I think they jumped the gun on a couple of coach firings that set
Hmm.
them back. But I think if and Hugh Freeze may not be the guy, but I think he's one of the better ones out there. And if they get some recruits in there and get some
Well,
fancy
the Hugh
cars
F-
and all that
the
kind of
Hugh
stuff, they'll be
Freeze,
all right.
yeah, the Hugh Freeze hire to me because he was at my alma mater before that. He was at Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which by the way, if I would have left Florida and just said like I'm going to support my alma mater, no one would have batted an eye around here. No one would have cared. Like, oh, you want to go support Liberty, the school you went to? Yeah, go for it.
They can't.
Anyways, that's not here
Yeah,
nor
you
there.
can't say anything, but you didn't
Yeah,
go to
that's not
Georgia.
here nor there. Yeah. So, but I'll say this. I noticed when Liberty started having success, and I think a lot of the success that we have today, in year 2 of our new coach is because of Hugh Freeze. I mean, Hugh Freeze
Yeah.
brought Liberty back and put
Mm-hmm.
Liberty on the map as far as, I mean, I think we won our first bowl games with Hugh Freeze, and I always will support Liberty. I mean, that's the school I went to. But I knew that the moment he was having success, and Florida or Liberty was making those bowl games, that the first SEC team that because before that he came from Ole Miss, and so he got out of the SEC, went to Liberty, and then I know there were some things that needed to be fixed in his life and stuff, and I think he found that at Liberty. But the moment the first team called him from the SEC, I knew he was going to take, and I think Auburn was that.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of seemed like a knee jerk hire, is what I guess I'm trying to get at. It was
Mm-hmm.
just a really like the first SEC team that calls me, that's where I'm going. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think Hugh Freeze is a good coach. He
Mm-hmm.
just may not be the guy at Auburn.
Yeah.
Because again, I feel like the Auburn Cal game is kind of like the Notre Dame Northern Illinois, like how Auburn expects to go into that game and just win outright, and
Yeah.
they
Well,
didn't. But they
I
played really
think
sloppy. I mean,
I think Florida State has a massive quarterback problem. Some Florida State fans probably argue with me and say they got some other problems, which they do. I'm not saying that, but I think Auburn has like an overall team talent issue more so than Florida State.
I
I
think
like
Florida
both
State is a
coaches.
good, yeah. No, I think Florida State has a good. They have good athletes, but I think definitely have a quarterback problem that they need to fix. But wasn't Norvell very transfer portal heavy this year or going into this year?
I mean, yeah, they worked in the portal a little bit, and man, I mean that stuff's going to play out. I mean, there are going to be transfers that certainly make an impact, but I think this whole idea that you can just sit back and just go shopping in the portal and put a team together, I don't think that's I don't think that's very sustainable because at the end of the day, the people that are in the portal are in the portal for a reason. You're
Mm-hmm.
not. It's not like, and I'll just use. Let me just use a good Georgia player. Let's pretend like Carson Beck is a junior right now, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and he has massive success this year. Why would he go in the portal? Now, Gunnar Stockton, if he was like, oh, I got to sit behind Carson Beck another season, I'm going in the portal. Well, what you got to be careful of is just because Gunnar Stockton has been in Georgia's program for 3 years now, that doesn't, you don't get to take him in the portal, put him on your team and say, oh, we have a Georgia quarterback. He
Yeah.
wasn't playing, and he wasn't
Yeah.
playing for a reason. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, and I've seen there's a defensive lineman that Florida State has that, they were like, oh, he D lineman from Georgia, big pickup in the portal. That kid wasn't seeing the field.
Well,
I
a
mean,
perfect
that's
example of
why
that
he was
wouldn't it
in the
be?
portal.
Didn't Georgia's backup? Who was? Didn't he go to Kentucky and he's now the starting quarterback in Kentucky?
Vandegrift, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Vandergriff, and look what happened. I mean,
That's
they
what I'm
lost to South
saying.
Carolina.
There's a
Yeah, perfect.
reason, and there were a lot of people that questioned, myself included, back in the whole Stetson Bennett era. I'm like, man, I don't know. We got Brock Vandegrift, we got these young guys. I mean, if they're as good as he is, then why aren't we, letting them go ahead and develop? But again, these coaches are seeing things that we don't see,
Yeah,
and there's a reason that Stetson Bennett was the quarterback. There's a reason that Carson Beck got the call over Vandegrift and Stockton. Now, I'm not saying Vandegrift's not a good pickup. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, but this idea of we can just shop and plug and play, I don't think that's going to. I think at the end of the day, this is going to circle back around to you're still going to have to recruit the best high school talent and develop it in your program to be able to win. Are you going to be able to go out and find some prize pieces along the way? Sure. Are you going to be able to fill
yeah,
some gaps in the transfer portal? Sure. But are you going to be able to just sit back and say, I don't think there's any greater example than Colorado. And I'm not taking a
yeah,
shot at Deion Sanders. I said from the get go, this was never going to work, that he was not going to
yeah,
have success. I
yeah,
don't, he's a wonderful man. He presents himself as a man of God, and I believe him to be genuine. He's prime. He's outlandish and
yeah.
all those things. But I'm going to tell you what he ain't. He ain't a good football coach. He is not a
No.
good football coach. He may be a great daddy. He may be a great leader of young men. He is not a good football coach. And it
Yeah.
shows up time and time and time again. And, again, what did he have? Like, he turned over 50 or 52 players and talked about all this talent that he brought in. Where at? I don't see
Yeah.
it.
I hadn't seen it.
I,
Yeah.
I, I don't see it. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's. I think it's overblown a little bit. I love that the players have the flexibility. I've always said, if coaches can just pack up and leave town, a player should not be, held down to, oh, I have to stay at this place. And I love the freedom to be able to go from place to place, but I still don't think it's going to be as big of a player as we may, at least not on the teams that are doing it well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I 1,000% agree with all of that. And, but as far as the the question of, I would say for anybody, if you guys see Andy, and because I know Andy's talked about, I'm done, Florida State, I'm done. And I feel like, what happened over the last week is it influenced that a little bit. I would just say to any other Florida State fans that may be listening or watching, don't do Andy like Florida fans did me. Like, go out for your boy. Like, give him reasons of why he needs to stay. Don't just like say like, "Oh, you're a traitor. Go do this. Go do that." Like, go. I mean, give him a reason. Because I think Florida State is nowhere near as in a bad place as like Florida's in, or some other places. Like even Auburn.
Mm.
I don't even think Auburn's in a real bad place like that. But it's just fight for him. But I really don't think Andy's going anywhere. I think he's too dedicated to it, and I don't really
If
even
he
think
if he
his
makes up his mind and jumps ship, I can assure you this: he ain't gonna care what anybody says
no,
or
well,
thinks. If he
and
makes
that's
up
the other
his
thing
mind,
too.
he'll make it known where he's going, and it's gonna be what it's gonna
Yeah,
be.
if he allows you to talk to him and like give you some type of argument back to him to try to defend the situation, that's one thing. But like if he gets set on I'm done with Florida State, I'm jumping ship and going to whatever team. Yeah, he's not gonna. He won't even care what we think. He's gonna go.
Yeah,
He's gonna go all in. But I will be a little deterred. Like I have reasons for going to Georgia. What reasons does Andy have going to Texas? And I wish he was here and here to explain that. But
that
what
Joker,
reasons
he
does a
he's
man go
gonna
from Florida State to Texas?
he would come up with like some. It would be the most random explanation. It would be like because Bucky's is my favorite place to stop at a convenience store, and they originated in Texas. I mean, it would
Probably.
be something absolutely ridiculous.
But it did
I
start off that it did start off that he wanted Florida State and Texas, which you vetoed right away. You said
I did.
absolutely cannot
No,
do that.
you cannot. You can have now Georgia and Liberty.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this: if you had graduated from I don't know Texas and you living
Yeah.
over here in Georgia talking about you want to be a Georgia fan, I'd tell you to kick rocks. You don't get both of them. You don't get both. And
Yeah.
no, you can have if you graduated from somewhere or if you have an elite like okay, he's got a kid in the band at Georgia Southern. I'm not arguing with you about Georgia Southern. If you want to be a
Yeah.
Florida State fan and a Georgia Southern fan, more power to
Go for
you.
it.
Okay.
Go
But
for
what we're not gonna do is be a Florida State and a Texas fan. And I'm gonna tell you something. This is what talking about Matt. This is what Matt's gonna do. Auburn's going to sit there and be 1 and whatever, 2 and whatever, 3 and whatever. And we talk about he's not going to come out. He's not going to talk about it a whole lot. We're not going to hear a lot in the group chat. But this is what's going to happen. Somebody like a Texas or it'd probably be a team like an Ole Miss or somebody like that. And say Ole Miss jumps out on us and they're up 14-0 early in the game. You know what text I'm going to get from him? It's going to be a little hotty totty. Just a little
it. Yeah.
hotty toddy
Go
from him.
Rebels.
And that's going to make me
Yeah.
snap because he's not going to say anything. He's not going to say anything about it, not going to make a big deal. Auburn's just going to be struggling. He's going to come out and do something like that. And he's going to be like, oh, yeah, no, I've been an Ole Miss fan for like 6 weeks now. No. I'm going to call that one out now. So when that
Yep.
does happen, y'all can come back and watch this and say, Brian told you so. I'm not
Yep.
hearing
No,
it.
yep. No, we'll save the clip. What I'll even take it a step further. What Andy has half the mind to do is come October 19th. Let's just because let's just say Florida State doesn't turn around, and we're all watching the game together. He has half the mind to go on a website like Fanatics and go buy a Texas shirt, and then we'll be sitting there in our Georgia stuff, and he'll come in with his Texas shirt on, talking about hook 'em horns, baby, and be sitting across from us. And I promise you, I'm not sitting there for 3.5 hours
I ain't
listening to
listening to
him.
it. No,
No, I'm not. I can't.
no.
I can't do it. I can't
Mm,
do it. But he would do that. So the biggest thing that needs to happen is Florida State just needs to turn it around, and
yeah.
and Auburn needs to turn it around.
I
Those
do
are the
not need to go through I cannot, I don't know that I can take another conversion this close in our circle.
yeah,
Like, I don't,
yeah,
it's weird, man. Like,
yeah.
it's just weird.
It's been a
But
wild week for sure, and I don't see it calming down anytime
no.
soon. But you got to believe though, if Georgia goes on to win the national title this year, there's gonna be one guy that's gonna be right in the middle of the celebration, and it's gonna be this guy. It's gonna be me. So,
This man is going to
um,
know nothing but national titles as a Georgia fan.
yeah, we had one of our guys, Blake, tell us he was like, "No," he was like, he tried to say it first. He's like, "No, no, no, you can't, you can't do that," because he's like, "You don't know the struggle that we went through for so many years." He's not like you and Blake, all of you guys that have been fans forever. I mean, you guys were. I mean, you've struggled for years and years and years, and now that Georgia has a little bit of success, even non-Georgia fans, like, you know, everyone's calling y'all like the new Alabama, and I've always heard you defend that. Like, we're not the new Alabama. Like, do you know how long it has taken us to even get back to some relevancy
We
of
got
of
like
being
10
in?
more years of doing exactly what we're doing right now. We got to do it for like
Yeah,
another decade before we get into the Alabama conversation.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, people forget. It's like, you do realize Nick Saban started rattling these things off back in '09. You realize how long
It's
2009 was. That was
15
15
years
years ago.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
And
and
mind you,
you know,
Alabama still beat us even last year. And this is supposed to be
yeah,
our time. And they're the
yeah,
ones that beat us and didn't let us go and play in the playoff. I mean, they're
yeah.
still a thorn in our side.
Yeah, and
Uh,
they're still gonna be good this year. So, um, part of me is like, man, I wish I would have, converted right when I moved here to Georgia, because then I could have been part of the like. Well, even still though, I could have came in and like that was what 2017. Y'all went to the national title that year, or was 2017, 2018. But I mean, I could have been a part of those national titles too, and I don't know, maybe it would have been different, maybe not, um, but who knows? We'll see. So I'm glad I'm over here. It's done. It's a done deal. It's over with. We don't have to talk about it anymore. It's happened. So um, it's a go dogs, Brian. It's go dogs forever and always. Here's the thing now that I see in the future. Now, when the Lord calls me home, someone at my service is going to say, Brandon Smith died a Georgia Bulldog. Just think about that.
I mean, you can't go back.
I can't, no. It is what it is. But I will say, red and black looks really good. It does. It looks good. What do you think? It's the block G. It's what you requested. There it
I mean,
is.
it looks official.
It's
I,
it's, it's as official can get. So, yeah, that's it. And anyways, for anybody that wants to convert, first of all, let's give it a couple weeks. For Brian needs to calm down from this one. It's been a whirlwind of a week,
please.
so let him calm down. But you have to come on the podcast. You have to give legit reasons. I'm not saying Brian's a gatekeeper for everybody's college decisions, but they got to be legit reasons, and we'll determine that here on our own podcast because it's our own show. We do whatever we want. Again, wild week 2 college. We'll see how the rest of the year goes, but we can already go ahead and throw these brackets out the door. Those are trash
See
now,
you. Yeah.
and maybe we'll redo them later. Again, Cairo High School takes on Cook County this Friday night, so we'll let you guys know how that goes in the next episode. Recap that. We might even go live from the stadium. Who knows? We talked about doing that. We thought about doing that at the Kathleen game, but it started raining. But we might go live, weather permitting. might go live at Cook County games. Look forward to that. And so, anyways, that's our episode. That is it. Hope you enjoyed it. We will catch you in the next one. Brian, can we get a go dogs?
Go Dogs.
All right, go dogs. Go dogs. And we will see you in the next episode. Peace out.